I was halfway to the biggest meeting of my career when I realized the contract folder was still sitting on my desk at home. My stomach dropped. I cursed under my breath, checked my watch, and made a sharp turn at the next intersection. The meeting was at 11, and it was only 10:15. I had time. My house in Scottsdale was just 12 minutes away. I pulled into my driveway at 10:30, expecting the place to be empty. My parents always ran errands on Tuesday mornings. The house was silent when I unlocked the front door. I headed straight for the stairs, taking them two at a time. That's when I heard voices coming from my parents' bedroom. My hand froze on the banister. My mother's voice cut through the quiet, sharp and clear. What she said next made my blood turn to ice. I stood at the top of the stairs, my heart hammering in my chest. The door to their bedroom was slightly ajar, and I could hear every word. "We need to move faster," my mother Linda said. "Travis found a lawyer who says we have a strong case." My father Gerald responded, his voice lower but still audible. "But what if Jarvis finds out before we file the paperwork?" I felt dizzy. What paperwork? What case? "He won't," Linda continued. "He trusts us completely. By the time he realizes what's happening, the house will be in our names." My house. They were talking about my house. The house I had saved for, worked 80-hour weeks to afford. The house I had bought 3 years ago for $275,000. The house I had generously offered to let them live in when my father's construction business collapsed 18 months ago. Gerald spoke again. "Travis said the lawyer can backdate some documents. Make it look like we contributed to the down payment." I pressed my back against the wall, trying to breathe quietly. My younger brother Travis was involved in this? The brother I had given over $40,000 to over the past 5 years? The brother who called me every few months with a new crisis, a new business idea that needed funding, a new emergency that only my wallet could solve? "We've lived here 18 months, Linda said, and I could hear the calculation in her voice. "That gives us tenant rights. And with the forged loan papers showing we gave him $50,000, we can claim partial ownership." Forged. The word echoed in my head. My own parents were planning to forge documents to steal my home. My hands were shaking. I had been so stupid, so trusting. I thought I was being a good son by taking them in. After Gerald's business went under, they had nowhere to go. Their savings were gone, their credit destroyed. I had opened my 4-bedroom home to them without hesitation. I covered the mortgage, the utilities, the groceries, their car insurance, my mother's medication, everything. And this was how they repaid me. "And once we get the house," Linda continued, her voice taking on a satisfied tone, "we can force him to buy us out or we'll force a sale. Either way, Travis gets his cut, and we finally have the retirement fund Gerald's business never gave us." Gerald added, "The boy's been too soft his whole life, always trying to help everyone. It's time he learned that family takes care of family, and we're taking what we're owed." What they were owed. As if my success was something they were entitled to. As if the house I had earned through years of 70-hour work weeks, through missed vacations and sacrificed relationships, through building my career as a commercial real estate consultant from the ground up, was somehow theirs by default. I realized I was still holding the folder I had come to retrieve. My hands had gone numb. I backed away from their door as quietly as I could, my mind racing. I needed to get out of here before they knew I had heard anything. I needed time to think, to plan, to figure out what to do. I made it down the stairs and out to my car without making a sound. I sat in the driver's seat, staring at my own front door, and felt something break inside me. Not just trust, something deeper. The fundamental belief that family meant safety, that blood meant loyalty, that love was unconditional. I had missed my meeting. I didn't care. I pulled out my phone and texted my assistant that I had a family emergency and needed to reschedule everything for the day. It wasn't a lie. As I drove away from my house, a strange calm settled over me. The shock was fading, replaced by something colder, sharper. If they wanted to play games with my life, I would play too. But I would play to win. I found myself at a coffee shop on the east side of Phoenix, somewhere far from my usual haunts, somewhere I could think without running into anyone I knew. I ordered a black coffee and sat in the corner, my laptop open in front of me but my mind 1,000 miles away. For 32 years I had believed in my family. I was the older brother, the responsible one, the one who made good choices. Travis was the wild card, the one who could never quite get his life together. But I had always helped him. Always. When he needed $5,000 for a car repair that I later learned was actually to cover a gambling debt, I gave it. When he needed $8,000 for a business opportunity that never materialized, I gave it. $12,000 for legal fees. $6,000 for rent when he got evicted. The list went on. And my parents. After I bought my house, after I established myself, they started having problems. Gerald's construction company had been struggling for years. He took out loans he couldn't repay, made bad bids on projects, hired unreliable crews. When it all came crashing down, I was there. I paid off $15,000 of their credit card debt. I bought them a used car when theirs died. And when they had nowhere to live, I gave them a home. I had never asked for gratitude. I thought that was what family did. You helped each other. You showed up. You gave without keeping score. But they had been keeping score. And in their accounting, I owed them everything. I spent the afternoon canceling appointments, apologizing to clients, rescheduling meetings. My assistant knew something was seriously wrong but didn't press me for details. By 4 in the afternoon, I had cleared my schedule and started making calls. The first call was to my real estate attorney, Marcus Webb. We had worked together on several commercial deals, and I trusted him completely. "Marcus, I need your help with something personal," I said when he answered. "What's going on, Jarvis?" I told him everything. The overheard conversation, the forged documents, the plan to steal my house. He listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "I'm not entirely surprised," he finally said. "Family financial disputes are more common than people think. But this level of premeditation, the forgery, that's serious. That's fraud. What do I do? First, don't confront them yet. We need evidence. We need to document everything. Can you get access to these forged documents they mentioned?" I thought about my father's home office, the spare bedroom I had let him, convert into a workspace. Probably. They're living in my house. I have access to everything. Good. Tonight, if you can, find those documents. Photograph them. Don't take the originals yet. We don't want to tip them off. Also, call your bank tomorrow and request copies of all your original mortgage documents and transaction history. We need to prove that no $50,000 loan ever existed. Okay. And Jarvis? I know this is painful, but you need to start thinking strategically. These are not people who have your best interests at heart. Protect yourself first. Grieve later. I drove home around 6 in the evening, my stomach in knots. I pulled into the driveway and sat in the car for 5 minutes, preparing myself. I had to act normal. I had to pretend I knew nothing. When I walked in, the smell of pot roast filled the house. Linda was in the kitchen, humming to herself. Gerald was in the living room, watching the news. Everything looked so normal, so domestic, so safe. "There you are," Linda said with a smile. "I was worried when you didn't come home for lunch. I made your favorite." My favorite. Pot roast with carrots and potatoes, the meal she used to make when I was a kid and had a bad day at school. The memory of those simpler times, when I actually believed my mother cared about my feelings, made me want to vomit. "Thanks, Mom," I managed to say. "Just a crazy day at work. I had to reschedule a big meeting." "Well, you work too hard," she said. And the concern in her voice sounded so genuine. How had I never noticed the performance before? Or had it always been real, and only now had greed twisted it into something ugly? Gerald came into the kitchen. "Son," he greeted me with a nod. We sat down for dinner, and I forced myself to eat, to make conversation, to laugh at Gerald's story about the hardware store. And then the front door opened, and Travis walked in. "Hey, family," he announced, his usual swagger on full display. "Travis," Linda said, her face lighting up. "I didn't know you were coming by." "Thought I'd join you for dinner," he said, glancing at me. If that's okay with the homeowner. There was something in his tone, a slight edge that I had never noticed before. Or maybe I had noticed and ignored it, written it off as Travis being Travis, the joking younger brother who never quite grew up. "Of course," I said evenly. "There's plenty." As we ate, I watched the three of them interact. Travis asked me questions about work, specifically about a large commission I was expecting from a commercial property sale. $65,000. a deal I had closed last month. I told him about it, and I saw Linda and Gerald exchange a quick glance. "That's wonderful, honey," Linda said. "You've worked so hard." Travis leaned back in his chair. "Must be nice to be so successful. Meanwhile, I'm still grinding away trying to make ends meet." The guilt trip. I had fallen for it 1,000 times before. "Not tonight." "You'll get there," I said simply. Later, Linda mentioned that the roof needed repairs. I had just had the roof inspected 6 months ago. It was fine. Gerald brought up how much property values in the neighborhood had increased, how houses on my street were now selling for over $300,000. They were building their narrative, establishing the value of what they planned to steal. I nodded along, asked appropriate questions, played my part perfectly. By 10 o'clock, Travis had left, and my parents had retired to their bedroom. I waited in my own room, watching the clock. At 1 in the morning, I crept down the hall to Gerald's office. The door creaked slightly as I opened it, and I froze, listening. Nothing. I slipped inside and closed the door behind me, using my phone's flashlight to navigate. Gerald's desk was cluttered with papers, old construction invoices, bills. I started searching systematically, careful not to disturb anything too much. In the bottom drawer, I found a folder labeled Property Documents. My heart raced as I opened it. Inside were loan agreements, documents claiming that Gerald and Linda had lent me $80,000 3 years ago for the down payment on the house. The signatures looked like mine. The dates matched the approximate time of my purchase. But I had never signed these documents. I had never borrowed a penny from them. There were bank statements too, doctored to show large withdrawals that supposedly represented the loan. I photographed everything with my phone, making sure to capture every detail. Behind the property folder, I found another file. This one had a business card attached to the front. Douglas Brennan, attorney at law. Inside were notes in Travis's handwriting, outlining the entire scheme, steps, and timelines, legal precedents for adverse possession and tenant rights. A breakdown of how they would split the proceeds, 40% to Linda and Gerald, 30% to Travis, 30% kept aside for legal fees and taxes. They had been planning this for 4 months. 4 months of living under my roof, eating my food, accepting my generosity, all while plotting to rob me. I found emails too, printed out and filed away. Exchanges between Linda and Travis. "Jarvis won't fight back," Linda had written. "He's too afraid of family conflict. He'll probably just give us what we want to avoid drama." Travis's response. "He's always been the weak one. Always trying to make everyone happy. We can absolutely walk all over him." I photographed everything, my hands steady now. This wasn't about emotion anymore. This was evidence. Then I found the second folder, and my blood went cold all over again. This one was labeled Contingency Plan. Inside were printouts about conservatorship laws in Arizona, how to have someone declared mentally incompetent. There were highlighted sections about isolation, poor judgment, inability to manage finances. They had notes about my personal life. Single at 32, no serious relationships, works excessive hours, socially isolated. They were building a case that I was mentally unfit. If the property scheme didn't work, they had a backup plan to take control of my entire financial life. A note in Linda's handwriting read, "If the house plan fails, the incompetency route could get us access to his entire portfolio. His retirement accounts alone are worth $300,000. I sat on the floor of the office, surrounded by evidence of my family's betrayal, and felt something shift inside me. The grief was still there, but it was buried under a layer of cold, calculated determination. They thought I was weak. They thought I wouldn't fight back. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I carefully put everything back exactly as I had found it, took one last look around to make sure nothing was disturbed, and slipped back to my bedroom. I spent the rest of the night staring at the ceiling, my phone full of photographs, my mind full of strategy. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. The next morning, I got up at my usual time, showered, dressed in a suit, and made myself breakfast. Linda came down while I was eating cereal at the kitchen counter. "You're up early," she said. "Big day," I replied. "Lots to do." She poured herself coffee and sat across from me. "You look tired, honey. Are you sleeping okay?" The concern was back in her voice, and I marveled at how easily she could switch it on. Was any of it ever real? Had she ever actually cared? Or had I always just been a future investment to her? I'm fine, Mom. Just busy season at work. As soon as I got to my office, I called Marcus. I have everything. Photos of forged documents. The whole plan laid out in their own handwriting, all of it. Send them to me, he said immediately. I'll review everything this morning. Can you come by my office at 2? I'll be there. Next, I called my bank. I spoke with a manager I had worked with before and explained that I needed certified copies of all my mortgage documents and transaction history for the past 4 years. She said she could have everything ready by end of day. Then I sat at my desk and did something I rarely did. I reviewed my own financial records. Every bank statement, every credit card bill, every payment I had made to or for family members. The numbers were staggering. In 5 years, I had given Travis $47,000. Small amounts here and there that added up to a fortune. Money for car repairs, rent, legal fees, business investments, medical bills. Not once had he paid me back. Not once had he even acknowledged the debt. My parents were worse. In 18 months, I had given them $32,000. And that didn't count the free housing, the utilities I paid, the groceries I bought, the car insurance I covered. If I factored in the value of living in my home rent-free, they had received well over $60,000 in benefits from me. $79,000 to family in 5 years. Money I could have invested, used for a down payment on a vacation home, put toward my own future. Instead, I had poured it into a black hole of entitlement and ingratitude. At 2 o'clock, I sat in Marcus's office while he reviewed the photographs on his laptop. This is serious fraud, he said. These signatures are forged. The bank statements are altered. If they had filed this claim and it went to court, you would have been able to prove your case, but the legal fees and time involved would have been substantial. So what do I do? We have a few options. Option 1. We go to the police right now. This is criminal fraud. They could face charges. I don't want them in jail, I said, surprising myself. Despite everything, I didn't want to destroy them completely. Option 2. We confront them with the evidence and get them to sign documents admitting the fraud and agreeing to vacate your property. They'll never agree to that voluntarily. They will if the alternative is prison. Marcus leaned back in his chair. But there's something else you should consider. If you confront them without a recording or witnesses, it's your word against theirs. They could deny everything, claim you fabricated the photos, make you out to be the bad guy. So what do you suggest? We need to catch them in the act, or get them to confess on record. Arizona is a one-party consent state, which means you can legally record a conversation you're part of without telling them. If we can get them to admit to the plan on tape, we have ironclad evidence. My phone buzzed. A text from Travis. Hey brother, can we meet for lunch? Need to talk about something important. I showed Marcus the text. He raised an eyebrow. This could be interesting. They're making their move. I texted back. Sure. Giovanni's at noon tomorrow? Travis responded immediately. Perfect. See you there. Marcus and I spent the next hour planning. He gave me a small recording device, showed me how to use it, and coached me on what to say and what not to say. The goal was to let Travis reveal his hand, get him on record discussing the scheme. Be careful, Marcus warned. If he senses you know something, he'll shut down. That night at home, I acted completely normal. I made small talk with my parents, watched television with Gerald, laughed at Linda's stories about her day volunteering at the library. Every smile I gave them felt like a lie, but it was a necessary lie. I was protecting myself, and I wouldn't apologize for that. The next day, I met Travis at Giovanni's, a casual Italian restaurant we had been to dozens of times. He was already seated when I arrived, looking relaxed and confident. Thanks for meeting me, he said as I sat down. Of course. What's going on? The recording device was in my jacket pocket, already running. I kept my body language open and friendly. Travis ordered wine, which should have been my first clue that something big was coming. He rarely spent money on anything he didn't have to. Look, he started once the wine arrived. I wanted to talk to you about Mom and Dad. What about them? They've been living with you for what, a year and a half now? That's a long time. 18 months, I confirmed. But it's fine. They needed help. Yeah, But don't you think it's time they had their own place again? I mean, you're 32. You should have your space. Maybe think about dating seriously, settling down. Can't do that with your parents in the house. I took a sip of water. I haven't really thought about it. Well, I have. And I found something. He pulled out his phone and showed me a listing. A small condo about 20 minutes from my house. It's perfect for them. 2 bedrooms, low maintenance, good area. That's nice, I said carefully. The thing is, they'd need help with the down payment. They're still rebuilding their credit, and their savings are pretty much gone. Here it comes, I thought. I was thinking, Travis continued. What if you help them out? Give them $100,000 for the down payment and first-year expenses. It would give you your house back. Give them their independence. Everybody wins. $100,000. The audacity was breathtaking. That's a lot of money, Travis. I know, but look at it as an investment in your own future. You've been so generous with them already. This would be the last big thing, and then they'd be set. I pretended to consider it. Let me think about it. I'd need to look at my accounts, see what's liquid. Actually, Travis leaned forward, his voice dropping. There's kind of a time crunch. The seller has another offer. We'd need to move fast, like within 2 weeks. I let silence fill the space between us. Travis shifted in his seat. I already talked to them about it. They're really excited. They don't want to be a burden on you anymore. A burden. That was rich. I'll think about it, I repeated. Come on, Jarvis. You can afford it. You just got that huge commission check. There it was. The knowledge he shouldn't have unless we had been discussing my finances behind my back. I had only mentioned that commission once, at dinner 2 nights ago. How do you know about my commission? I asked, keeping my tone casual. Travis realized his mistake. You mentioned it, didn't you? I mentioned I closed a big deal. I didn't mention the specific amount. He recovered quickly. Mom must have told me. She said you seemed excited about it. Lie. But I let it go. Look, I said, I need some time to think about this. It's a big decision. Sure, Travis said, but I could see the frustration in his eyes. Just don't take too long. Opportunities like this don't last. I paid for lunch, noted the irony of that, and left. In my car, I checked the recording device. Crystal clear. Travis suggesting I give them $100,000. His slip about knowing the details of my commission, all of it captured. But I needed more. I needed the full confession from my parents. That evening, I told Linda and Gerald I wanted to have a family discussion. Travis showed up within 15 minutes of my text to him. They had clearly coordinated this. We sat in my living room, and I set up the recording device in advance, hidden on the bookshelf. It had a wide-range microphone that Marcus assured me would pick up everything. I've been thinking, I started, about our living situation. All 3 of them tensed slightly, and I've realized I need to make some changes. But before I do, I need to understand some things. I've been reviewing my financial records, and I noticed some discrepancies. Gerald's face reddened slightly. Linda's expression remained neutral, but her hands tightened on the armrest of her chair. What kind of discrepancies? She asked. Well, for one, I've been very generous with all of you over the years, and I don't regret that. But I also don't have any record of being paid back for any of the money I've lent. Lent? Travis scoffed. That was family helping family. Right. So those were gifts, not loans? Of course they were gifts, Linda said. You're our son. We raised you. It's natural that you'd want to help us. I nodded slowly. Okay, so I gave you gifts. Substantial gifts. Over $79,000 in the past 5 years, actually. The number hung in the air. That seems high, Gerald muttered. It's not. I have every receipt, every bank transfer. It's all documented. What's your point, Jarvis? Linda asked, her voice taking on an edge. My point is that I've been very good to this family, and I want to make sure we're all on the same page about our financial relationship going forward. Travis jumped in, which is why the condo idea makes sense. A clean break. You help them one last time, and everyone gets space. About that, I said. Where would you get the idea that I owe Mom and Dad $100,000? Not owe, Travis backpedaled. It would be a gift, to thank them for everything they've done. Everything they've done. I repeated the phrase. Like what? Specifically. Like raising you, Linda snapped. Like putting a roof over your head for 18 years, feeding you, clothing you, paying for your education. You mean doing the basic requirements of being a parent? The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. I think you need to watch your tone, Gerald said, his voice low and threatening. This was the moment. I could feel it. They were getting angry, defensive. Anger made people say things they shouldn't. I'm just trying to understand, I said calmly. Because Travis mentioned I should give you money for a condo. And I'm wondering why you think I should do that. Because we're family, Linda said. And family takes care of family. Even if that family has been taking advantage of me? Taking advantage? Linda stood up. How dare you? We've sacrificed everything for you. What have you sacrificed? I paid for everything for the last 18 months. We gave you life, she shouted. And then Gerald played his hand. If you must know, we're not asking for charity. We're asking for what's owed to us. We helped you buy this house. My heart pounded, but I kept my voice level. You helped me buy this house? Yes, Linda said, sensing an opening. We lent you money 3 years ago, $80,000, and you seem to have conveniently forgotten. I stared at them. You lent me $80,000. Yes, Gerald confirmed. We have the paperwork to prove it. Show me. It's in our safe deposit box at the bank, Linda said quickly. We'll get it tomorrow. Travis was watching this exchange with satisfaction. He thought they were winning. And if I say I don't remember this loan? I asked. Then maybe you need to see a doctor, Linda said, her voice dripping with false concern. Memory problems at your age are concerning, Jarvis. Maybe the stress of work has been too much. Maybe you need help managing your affairs. There it was, the incompetency angle. Are you suggesting I'm mentally unfit? I'm suggesting, Linda said carefully, that if you can't remember an $80,000 loan, something is wrong. Gerald stood up. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to acknowledge this debt. You're going to work out a repayment plan with us. Or we're going to court. And in court, Linda added, everything comes out. How you've been financially controlling. How you've been unstable. How you forced us to live here under your thumb. We've documented everything, Gerald said. Every time you lost your temper. Every time you seemed paranoid. Every time you isolated yourself instead of being social. Travis finally spoke up. Look, nobody wants it to get ugly. Just acknowledge what you owe them. Help them get the condo, and we all move on. Simple. I looked at each of them. My mother, who had sung me lullabies when I was sick. My father, who had taught me to ride a bike. My brother, who I had protected from bullies in middle school. And I saw them clearly for the first time. Not as the family I had imagined, but as the family they actually were. Opportunists. Manipulators. People who saw my success as something to exploit rather than celebrate. I need 48 hours to think about this, I said quietly. 48 hours, Linda agreed. Then we go to our lawyer. They left the room, confident they had won. Travis gave me a pat on the shoulder on his way out, like he was consoling me. I sat alone in my living room, the recording device capturing every word they had said. They had confessed to the fake loan. They had threatened to claim I was mentally incompetent. They had admitted to documenting things to use against me. I had everything I needed. I picked up my phone and called Marcus. I have it. Everything. They confessed. Good, Marcus said. Tomorrow morning, my office. We end this. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, thinking about the childhood I remembered. The birthday parties, the family vacations, the Christmas mornings. Had any of it been real? Or had I just been too young to see the transactional nature of their love? I thought about trust, about how it's built slowly over years and destroyed in seconds. I thought about family, about what it's supposed to mean versus what it had become. And I thought about tomorrow, when I would stop being a victim and start fighting back. The next morning, I was sitting in Marcus's conference room by 8 o'clock. He had brought his associate, Angela Frost, who specialized in family law and estate litigation. They had both listened to the recording twice, reviewed all my photographic evidence, and examined my bank records. This is one of the most clear-cut cases of attempted fraud I've seen, Angela said. They essentially confessed to everything on tape. What's the plan? I asked. Marcus laid out several documents. We're going to give them one chance to make this right. We'll present the evidence, Offer them a settlement that keeps this out of criminal court, and get them to sign agreements that protect you going forward. And if they don't cooperate, then we go to the police, Marcus said. Forging loan documents is fraud. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Depending on how far they took it, we might even have attempted theft and identity theft charges. I don't want them arrested, I said again. Despite everything, the thought of my parents in handcuffs made me sick. Then we make sure they understand that cooperation is their only option, Angela said. We make it very clear what the alternative is. That afternoon, I sent a text to my family group chat. Family meeting tonight at 7. Important. Be there. Travis responded first. Everything okay? I replied. We'll discuss tonight. Linda called me, but I didn't answer. Let them wonder. Let them worry. At 6:30, Marcus and Angela arrived at my house. We set up in the dining room, spreading documents across the table. At exactly 7 o'clock, my parents and Travis arrived together. They stopped in the doorway when they saw the lawyers. What is this? Travis asked. This is the conversation we're going to have, I said calmly. Please sit down. We don't need lawyers for a family discussion, Gerald protested. Actually, Marcus said, since you've threatened legal action against my client, I think we do. Reluctantly, they sat down. I could see the calculation in their eyes, the attempts to figure out what I knew. I want to give you one chance to tell the truth, I started. Did you lend me $80,000 3 years ago? Linda's chin lifted. Yes, we did. I opened a folder and slid papers across the table. This is my complete banking history for the past 5 years. Every transaction, every deposit, every withdrawal. There is no $80,000 deposit from you. There's no payment to you. There's no loan. It was cash, Gerald said. 80,000 in cash? I repeated. Where did you get 80,000 in cash? We had savings, Linda insisted. Marcus interjected. Mr. and Mrs. Turner filed for bankruptcy 2 years ago. According to these documents, which are public record, you had no savings. Your total assets at the time of filing were less than $12,000. Gerald's face went red. Travis leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. This is harassment, Travis said. Angela spoke for the first time. What's harassment is forging legal documents. I pulled out my phone and opened the photos. These are the documents I found in Dad's office. Forged loan agreements, altered bank statements, an entire plan, in your handwriting, Travis, outlining how you were going to defraud me. I placed printed copies on the table. They stared at them, and I watched the color drain from Linda's face. Where did you get those? Gerald demanded. From your office, I said. In my house. That's illegal search, Travis tried. No, Marcus said. It's his house. You have no expectation of privacy. I pulled out more papers. And this is your backup plan, the conservatorship research. The plan to have me declared mentally incompetent, so you could take control of my finances. Linda started to cry. Real tears this time, not the manipulative ones I'd seen before. These were tears of panic. And finally, I said, pressing play on my phone. This is from last night. Their voices filled the room. The accusations, the threats. Linda claiming they had lent me money. Gerald threatening to take me to court. Travis suggesting I needed psychiatric help. All of it captured perfectly. The recording ended. Silence filled the room. You recorded us, Linda whispered. One-party consent state, Angela said. Perfectly legal. Gerald stood up. What do you want? Sit down, Marcus said, his voice carrying authority that made my father obey instantly. I took a breath. Here's what's going to happen. First, you will sign this document. I slid a paper across the table. It states that you never lent me any money, that all documents claiming otherwise are false, and that you acknowledge attempting to defraud me. We're not signing that, Travis said. Second, I continued as if he hadn't spoken. You have 30 days to find new housing and move out. You will not receive any financial assistance from me. You're throwing us out? Linda's tears were flowing freely now. You were going to steal my house, I said. I'm showing mercy by giving you 30 days. And third, Marcus added, if any of you contact Mr. Turner after this meeting except to arrange the move out, if any of you speak to media or family members about this situation in a defamatory way, If any of you make any further claims against him, we will immediately file criminal charges for fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. We could go to prison? Linda asked, her voice breaking. Yes, Angela said flatly. This is serious fraud, multiple felonies. You'd be looking at several years each. Gerald's hands were shaking. We're your parents. And I'm your son, I said. Did that matter when you were planning to rob me? Travis leaned forward. What about me? What do I have to sign? I slid another paper to him. This is a release stating that all money I've given you over the years, $47,000, was a gift with no expectation of repayment, and that you will never make any financial claims against me. That's it? He asked. That's it. Sign it, and you walk away. Don't sign it, and we discuss your role in conspiracy to commit fraud. He picked up the pen and signed without another word. Self-preservation. It was the most honest thing he'd done in years. My parents stared at their document. If we sign this, we're admitting we tried to steal from you, Gerald said. Yes, Marcus confirmed. But you'll avoid criminal prosecution. This is the deal. Linda looked at me, her eyes pleading. Jarvis, please. We made a mistake. We were desperate. You weren't desperate, I said quietly. You were greedy. You looked at my success and decided it belonged to you. You watched me work 70-hour weeks, sacrifice relationships, build something from nothing, and you thought you could just take it. We're your parents, she said again, as if that explained everything. Then act like it, I said. Parents are supposed to protect their children, not prey on them. The silence stretched out. Finally, Gerald picked up the pen. His hand shook as he signed the document. Linda followed, her tears dripping onto the paper. Marcus and Angela witnessed the signatures, then gathered all the documents. You have 30 days, Marcus said. We'll be in touch about the move-out details. They stood up slowly. Travis left first, not looking back. Gerald helped Linda to her feet. She looked at me one more time. I hope you can forgive us someday, she said. I hope you can understand what you did to me, I replied. They walked out of my house. I heard their car start, heard them drive away. And then it was just me, Marcus, and Angela sitting around my dining room table. You did the right thing, Marcus said, putting a hand on my shoulder. But it didn't feel right. It felt like death, like something precious and irreplaceable had been destroyed, and no amount of justice could bring it back. After the lawyers left, I sat alone in my house, legally protected now, secured, safe. But it had never felt more empty. The next 3 weeks were chaos. Linda called me 17 times the first week. I didn't answer. She left voicemails ranging from begging to angry to threatening. Marcus advised me to document everything but not respond. Gerald showed up at my office on a Wednesday afternoon, causing a scene in the lobby. Security had to escort him out. He yelled that I was abandoning my family, that I was heartless, that I would regret this. My colleagues pretended not to hear, but I saw their curious glances for days afterward. Travis sent texts alternating between apologetic and hostile. You destroyed this family. I'm sorry for my part. Mom's crying every day because of you. I understand why you did it. He couldn't seem to decide which approach might work. Then the extended family started calling. My Aunt Patricia, Linda's older sister, called me on a Friday evening. How could you treat your parents this way? She demanded without preamble. They're telling everyone you kicked them out over a misunderstanding about money. It wasn't a misunderstanding, Aunt Pat. They're your parents, Jarvis. They raised you, fed you, sacrificed for you. And this is how you repay them? I realized then that Linda and Gerald were telling a very different story to everyone they knew. In their version, there was a simple miscommunication about money, maybe a disagreement about a loan from years ago, and their cruel, ungrateful son had thrown them into the street. That's not what happened, I said. Then what did happen? I hesitated. Did I really want to air all of this? Did I want the entire family to know that my parents had tried to commit fraud against me? It's complicated, I said finally. Everything's complicated with you, isn't it? Patricia said. You always were difficult. Too serious. Too rigid. Maybe your parents are right. Maybe you do need to relax your standards a little. She hung up on me. Over the next week, I received calls from cousins, my Uncle Robert, my grandmother's best friend, people I hadn't spoken to in years. All of them had heard some version of the story where I was the villain. Some of them were hostile. Others were concerned, asking if I was okay, if I was under stress, implying without saying it directly that maybe I wasn't thinking clearly. The incompetency narrative was spreading, even without my parents officially pursuing it. I found myself explaining, defending, justifying. But how do you condense something this complex into a phone conversation? How do you make someone understand betrayal this deep, without sounding paranoid or vindictive? Finally, I made a decision. I wrote an email, factual, calm, detailed but not overwrought. I explained what had happened. I included some of the documentation, with names and specific financial information redacted, but enough to show that forged documents had existed. I explained the conservatorship plan. I shared that everything was on record with my attorney. I sent it to close family members only, the ones I thought deserved the truth. Some responded with apologies. My cousin Jennifer wrote back immediately, "I'm so sorry. I had no idea. That must have been devastating." Others were skeptical. My uncle Robert replied, "There are always two sides to every story. I'm sure your parents had their reasons. But at least the truth was out there. At least I had defended myself." And then, 2 weeks and 3 days after the confrontation, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Is this Jarvis Turner?" A man's voice. Unfamiliar. "Who's asking?" "My name is Dominic Russo. I'm calling about your brother, Travis." My stomach dropped. "What about him?" "He owes my associates a significant amount of money. We've been patient, but patience has limits. We heard that you were helping him cover his debts, but apparently that's no longer the case. A debt collector. Or worse, given the phrasing, someone connected to Travis's gambling debts." "I'm not covering Travis's debts," I said firmly. "Whatever he owes is between you and him." "That's unfortunate. You see, Travis has been telling us for months that his brother was going to bail him out. We've extended payment plans based on that assurance. I never agreed to that. Maybe you two should have communicated better." There was an edge to his voice now. "Look, Mr. Turner, your brother owes $200,000. He doesn't have it. He says you're a successful businessman. Seems like family helping family makes sense here. $200,000. I had known Travis had gambling problems, but I hadn't realized the scale. "I'm not giving Travis $200,000, I said. "That's final. Think carefully about this decision. Family is important. You wouldn't want anything to happen to your brother. Is that a threat? It's a reality check. Travis made promises based on your support. If that support doesn't materialize, well, disappointed creditors can be unpredictable." He hung up. I sat staring at my phone, processing this new information. This was why my parents had been so desperate. This was why they were willing to commit fraud, to risk everything. They weren't just being greedy. They were trying to save Travis from his gambling debts, and they had been willing to destroy my life to do it. I called Marcus immediately and told him about the call. "Document everything," he said. "If they contact you again, record it if you can. If the threats escalate, we go to the police." "What about Travis?" "Travis is an adult who made his own choices. You are not responsible for his debts. You are not required to bankrupt yourself to save him from consequences." Intellectually, I knew Marcus was right. Emotionally, I felt sick. Travis was my brother. We had grown up together, shared a room until I was 13, played video games and basketball, and argued over the remote control. And now he was in danger because of his own stupidity, and I was refusing to help. But I had helped. For years, I had helped. And it had never been enough. It would never be enough. Because the problem wasn't lack of money. The problem was lack of accountability. That night, Travis called me. "Did Dominic reach out to you?" "Yes." And I told him, "I'm not paying your gambling debts." "Jarvis, they're going to hurt me. You don't understand these people. Then maybe you shouldn't have borrowed money from them." I had a problem. I was sick. Gambling addiction is a disease. And I've given you $47,000 over the years. How much of that went to gambling? Silence. "That's what I thought," I said. "Travis, I love you, but I can't save you from yourself. You need to face this. Declare bankruptcy. Get into treatment. Do whatever you have to do. But I'm not giving you $200,000. They'll kill me." "No, they won't. They'll harass you. They'll make your life difficult. But if they actually hurt you, they know they'll never get paid. They're not going to eliminate their own debtor." "How can you be so cold?" "I'm not cold. I'm realistic, and I'm protecting myself. Something I should have done years ago. I hung up. On day 29, my parents began moving out. I had offered to help them find an apartment, offered to facilitate the process in any way that didn't involve money. They had declined through their attorney, wanting no contact with me. I was at work when it happened, deliberately avoiding the process. But I came home that evening to find the spare bedroom empty, my father's office cleared out, their bathroom stripped of personal items. They had left the furniture I had bought for them, taken only what was truly theirs. On the kitchen counter, there was a note. We hope someday you can forgive us. We hope you understand we were trying to protect our family. We hope you find happiness. Linda and Gerald. No apology. No acknowledgement of what they had actually done. Just hope that I would someday see it their way. I crumpled the note and threw it in the trash. Then I walked through my house, room by room. I had bought this house 3 years ago with pride and joy. It represented everything I had worked for. But for the last 18 months, it had been invaded, occupied by people who saw it as something to exploit. Now it was mine again, truly mine. I called a locksmith and had all the locks changed. I called a painting company and scheduled them to repaint the spare bedroom and office. I called a cleaning service for a deep clean. I was erasing their presence, reclaiming my space. It felt like breathing again. Over the next few weeks, I heard updates through the family grapevine. My parents had found a small apartment in a less expensive part of Phoenix. Gerald had gotten a part-time consulting job with a small contracting firm. Linda was working retail at a department store. They were managing barely. Travis had declared bankruptcy. His creditors had accepted a payment plan for pennies on the dollar. He was working construction, actually showing up every day, actually earning an honest paycheck. The threats had stopped. My Aunt Patricia called back 2 months after our last conversation. I talked to Gerald, she said quietly. Really talked to him. He told me what really happened. Did he? I owe you an apology. I should have trusted you. I always knew Linda was complicated about money. I just didn't think it would go that far. Thank you, I said, and meant it. Are you okay? She asked. I'm getting there. 3 months after they moved out, I ran into Gerald at a grocery store. We both froze when we made eye contact across the produce section. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then he walked over to me. He looked older, more tired, smaller somehow. Jarvis, he said. Dad. We stood there. 2 men who used to be father and son. Now something else. Something damaged and uncertain. You were right to protect yourself, he said finally, quietly. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even close. But it was acknowledgement. It was something. I hope you're doing okay, I said, and I meant it. Despite everything, I didn't want them to suffer. I just needed them to stay away from me. We're managing. He paused. Your mother wants to talk to you. I'm not ready for that. He nodded. I understand. He started to walk away. Then turned back. You were always the good one, you know. The smart one. The one who did everything right. Maybe that's why we thought we could lean on you so hard. We forgot that even strong people can break. Then he walked away, and I stood alone in the produce section, holding a bag of apples, feeling something crack open inside my chest. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But maybe the beginning of something. Maybe the first step toward a day when I could think about my parents without feeling betrayed. Maybe. I went home to my house, my empty house, my safe house. I made dinner, watched television, went to bed in the silence. And for the first time in months, I slept through the night. 6 months had passed since the confrontation. 6 months since I had changed the locks, repainted the walls, and reclaimed my space. 6 months of learning to live without the family I thought I had. I threw myself into work, closed 3 major deals, my best financial quarter ever, made enough commission to max out my retirement contributions, and put a significant down payment on a rental property. I was building wealth, securing my future, doing exactly what I should have been doing all along instead of funding other people's irresponsibility. But success didn't fill the silence in my house. My boss, Richard, noticed I was working later and later hours. One evening, around 8 o'clock, he stopped by my office. Jarvis, go home, he said. I'm just finishing up this proposal. You're always just finishing something. When's the last time you left before 7? I couldn't remember. Look, Richard said, sitting down across from my desk. I don't know what's going on in your personal life, and you don't have to tell me, but I've seen this before. People who bury themselves in work because they're avoiding something. It's not sustainable. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're running. And eventually, you'll run out of places to hide. After he left, I sat alone in my office and admitted to myself that he was right. I was avoiding. Avoiding the grief, avoiding the loss, avoiding the reality that my family was broken and I didn't know how to fix it, or if it could be fixed, or if I even wanted to fix it. A few days later, I was grabbing coffee near my office when I ran into someone from college, Heather Collins. We had been in several business classes together, had even dated briefly in our senior year before going our separate ways after graduation. "Jarvis Turner," she said with a smile. "I heard you were doing well in commercial real estate." We talked for 20 minutes, catching up on the past decade. She was working as a marketing director for a tech startup. Single, like me. Focused on career, like me. "We should get dinner sometime," she said. "I'd love to hear more about what you're doing." I hesitated. I hadn't dated seriously in years. The family situation had consumed so much of my emotional energy, but Richard's words echoed in my head. "Eventually, you'll run out of places to hide." "I'd like that," I said. We exchanged numbers. 2 days later, we had dinner at a small Thai restaurant downtown. She was funny, intelligent, ambitious. She asked about my work, and I asked about hers. It was normal, easy, the kind of conversation that reminded me there was a world beyond family drama and betrayal. On our third date, she asked about my family. I had been dreading this question. I told her the whole story. Everything. The overheard conversation, the forged documents, the confrontation, the aftermath. I expected her to be shocked, maybe judgmental, maybe concerned about my emotional state. Instead, she reached across the table and took my hand. "That must have been devastating," she said simply. "It was. But you protected yourself. You set boundaries. That takes courage. Sometimes it feels more like cowardice. Like I should have tried harder to fix things." "Fix what? Their decision to betray you? You can't fix what other people choose to do, Jarvis. You can only control how you respond." It was the first time someone had said that to me without following it up with, "But they're still your family," or "But you should forgive them." I started seeing Heather regularly. She met my friends, the few I had managed to maintain despite working constantly. She understood that I was still processing trauma, still learning to trust again. She came from a functional family. Parents who were still married, still supportive, still healthy in their relationships with their adult children. Watching her interact with them was both healing and painful. Healing because it showed me what family could be. Painful because it highlighted what I had lost. Her mother, Carol, pulled me aside at a family barbecue once. "Heather told us a bit about your situation," she said gently. "I'm sorry you went through that. Thank you. I want you to know that what they did doesn't reflect on you. You're not responsible for their choices." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. "And I want you to know that you're welcome here. Anytime. No expectations, no obligations. Just welcome." I excused myself and went to the bathroom, where I stood with my hands on the sink and cried silently for 5 minutes. It was the grief I had been holding back for months. The loss of something I hadn't even known I needed. Unconditional acceptance. Meanwhile, updates about my family continued to filter through. Travis had been working construction for 6 months. Consistently. He had joined Gamblers Anonymous and was attending meetings twice a week. He was dating someone, a woman named Sarah who worked as a teacher, and reportedly didn't know about his past. He was getting a fresh start. My parents were still working their modest jobs, still living in their small apartment. By all accounts, they were managing. Not thriving, but surviving. Then, on a random Tuesday, I received a text from Travis. Just 2 words. "I'm sorry." I stared at the message for a long time. 2 words, 2 syllables, such a small thing to represent, such a massive betrayal. I didn't respond immediately. I thought about it for a week. What did I want from an apology? What would it mean to accept it? Was I ready to have any kind of relationship with him again? Finally, I replied, "I accept your apology. I hope you're doing better." His response came quickly. "I am. Working construction. It's hard work. Good work. Honest work. I'm glad." I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm trying to be someone you'd be proud to call brother. I didn't know what to say to that, so I said nothing. But I didn't block his number. I left the door open, just a crack. At work, I started a new initiative. I volunteered with a nonprofit that taught financial literacy to young adults. Once a week, I spent 2 hours teaching 20-somethings about budgeting, saving, investing, and setting financial boundaries with family. The last topic always generated the most discussion. My mom keeps asking me for money, one young woman said, and I feel guilty saying no. Why do you feel guilty? I asked. Because she's my mom. She raised me. I feel like I owe her. You owe her your love and respect, I said. You don't owe her your financial security. There's a difference. I watched her process this, watched the relief wash over her face. Someone had given her permission to protect herself. After class, she approached me. Thank you, she said. I've been tearing myself apart trying to help her, while also trying to build my own life. I thought I was being selfish. You're not selfish, I assured her. You're setting healthy boundaries. That's not the same thing. Teaching others helped me process my own experience. Every question they asked, every situation they described, I saw echoes of my own story. And helping them helped me understand that what had happened to me wasn't unique. Family financial exploitation was more common than anyone wanted to admit. 9 months after the confrontation, I received a letter in the mail. Handwritten, my father's distinctive scrawl on the envelope. I almost threw it away without opening it. But curiosity won. Inside was a single page. His words were careful, measured. Jarvis, I've been in therapy. Something I should have done years ago. The therapist asked me to write this letter. Not to send necessarily, but to process my own actions. I've decided to send it because you deserve to know where my head is. I was a failure. My business collapsed. My pride was destroyed. I felt like I had let everyone down. Linda, Travis, you. I was supposed to be the provider, the strong one, and I couldn't even pay my own bills. When you took us in, I was grateful. But I was also resentful. You had succeeded where I had failed. You were strong where I was weak. And that made me angry in ways I couldn't admit. The plan to take the house wasn't really about money. It was about feeling like I still had power, like I still mattered, like I could still provide for my family, even if it meant taking from you. I convinced myself it was justified. You had so much. We had so little. It was only fair that we got something back. But that was a lie I told myself to avoid facing the truth. The truth is, I was a coward. Instead of facing my failures, rebuilding my life with integrity, I decided to steal from my own son. I decided that your success was mine to claim because I had raised you. But raising you was my job. It wasn't a loan you needed to repay. It was the bare minimum of being a father. I don't ask for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that you taught me something. You taught me that integrity matters more than money, that boundaries are not cruelty, that love without respect is just manipulation. I wish I had learned that lesson before I needed my son to teach me. I'm sorry, Gerald. I read the letter 3 times. It wasn't perfect. It didn't undo anything. But it was honest. It was self-aware. It was something. I folded it carefully and put it in my desk drawer. I didn't respond, but I kept it. A month later, Linda called. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Jarvis, she said, her voice tentative. I know you don't want to talk to me, but I wanted to tell you something. And then I'll leave you alone. Okay. I've been in therapy too. Gerald convinced me to go. At first I was angry about it. I thought I didn't need it. But the therapist asked me something that I couldn't stop thinking about. What? She asked me why I did what I did. What was I really after? And I've been thinking about it for months. I waited. I grew up poor, Jarvis. Really poor. Government cheese poor. Free lunch at school poor. I vowed that my children would never struggle like I did. I worked so hard to give you and Travis better lives. But when Gerald's business failed, I felt like I had failed. Like I was becoming my mother, unable to provide, unable to protect. And Travis was in danger. Real danger. People who would hurt him if he didn't pay. I told myself that taking from you was evening the scales. Robin Hood, you know? You had succeeded. You were fine. Travis needed help. It made sense in my head. But it wasn't Robin Hood. It was just theft. And worse, it was betrayal. You had trusted us. You had opened your home, and we used that trust as a weapon. I can't undo it, but I want you to know I understand now why it was wrong. Not just legally wrong, but morally wrong. You didn't owe us your success. You didn't owe us anything beyond what you had already given, which was more than most sons would have given. She paused, and I heard her crying softly. "Can you forgive me?" she asked. I thought about it, really thought about it. "I can accept your apology," I said finally. "Forgiveness is going to take more time, maybe a long time, maybe forever." "That's fair," she said. "I won't bother you again, but if you ever want to reach out, I'd like to hear from you." "Okay," I said. We sat in silence for a moment. "Heather seems nice," Linda said suddenly. "How do you know about Heather?" "Aunt Patricia mentioned you were seeing someone." "I'm glad. You deserve happiness, Jarvis." "Thank you. Goodbye, son." "Goodbye, Mom." She hung up. I sat holding the phone, processing the conversation. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. But it was something. An acknowledgement. An opening. Maybe that was enough for now. 2 years had passed since that morning, when I had forgotten my folder and overheard a conversation that changed my life. 2 years since I had learned that the family I thought I had was an illusion, a performance, a transaction. The anniversary didn't pass without notice. I woke up on that Tuesday morning and lay in bed, thinking about everything that had happened, everything I had lost, everything I had gained. My house was still my sanctuary. I had redecorated, made it truly mine. New furniture, new art on the walls, a home gym in what used to be my father's office. Heather had moved in 6 months ago. We were talking about getting married, about building a life together, about what family could mean when it was chosen rather than assigned. Travis and I texted occasionally. Birthday wishes, holiday greetings, brief updates. He was still working construction, had been promoted to site supervisor. He was engaged to Sarah, planning a small wedding in the fall. He hadn't asked me for money in 2 years. That alone felt like a miracle. My parents and I had settled into a distant but civil relationship. We didn't see each other often. Maybe 3 times in 2 years. Brief meetings at neutral locations. Conversations that stayed safe and shallow. They had sent a Christmas card. I had sent one back. It wasn't warmth, but it wasn't hostility either. At work, I had been promoted to senior consultant. My financial literacy classes had expanded, and I was now teaching twice a week. Young adults came to learn about money, but often they stayed to talk about family, about boundaries, about guilt and obligation, and how to protect yourself without hating yourself. I had become something I never intended, a cautionary tale and a success story wrapped into one. On that Tuesday morning, exactly 2 years after everything changed, I sat at my kitchen table with coffee and thought about what I had learned, about love and boundaries, about trust and verification, about the difference between helping someone and enabling them, about the courage it takes to say no to people you care about the grief that comes with necessary choices. I thought about the person I had been 2 years ago. Generous to a fault, eager to please, terrified of conflict, believing that love meant endless sacrifice, that family meant unconditional support regardless of behavior. That person was gone. In his place was someone harder but wiser. Someone who could still love, but wouldn't allow love to be weaponized against him. Someone who understood that real family relationships require mutual respect, not one-sided obligation. Heather came into the kitchen, already dressed for work. She kissed the top of my head. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Just thinking." "About them?" "About everything." She poured herself coffee and sat across from me. "You know what I admire most about you?" she said. "You didn't let what they did make you bitter. You didn't let it turn you into someone cynical who never helps anyone. You just learned to help more wisely." "I'm still learning," I admitted. "We all are." That evening, I received a text from Travis. "Hey, I know today is the anniversary of everything. Just wanted to say I'm sorry. Again. And to tell you that I wouldn't be where I am now if you hadn't cut me off. I needed to hit bottom. I needed consequences. You gave me that. even though it probably hurts you to do it. So, thank you. I love you, brother. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed, I love you too. 3 words I hadn't said to him in 2 years. 3 words that felt both natural and strange. The next message was from my mother. Jarvis, I don't know if you remember, but 2 years ago today, everything fell apart. I've been thinking about it all day, about how we hurt you, about how you had every right to destroy us, and instead you gave us a chance to rebuild. Gerald and I are doing okay. We're not rich, but we're honest. We work for what we have. We don't take what isn't ours. You taught us that. I hope you're happy. You deserve it. Love, Mom. I didn't respond immediately, but I saved the message. 6 months later, Heather and I got engaged. We planned a small wedding, just close friends and her family. I didn't invite my parents or Travis, not out of spite, but out of protection. I wasn't ready for that yet, but 3 weeks before the wedding, I changed my mind. I sent a simple email to all 3 of them. Heather and I are getting married on June 10th. We're having a small ceremony and reception. You're welcome to attend if you'd like. No pressure, just an invitation. My mother responded within an hour. We would love to come. Thank you for including us. Travis wrote, I'll be there. Congratulations, brother. On the day of the wedding, they came. They stayed in the background, didn't make themselves the center of attention, didn't overstay their welcome. Linda cried during the ceremony. Gerald shook my hand afterward and said simply, I'm proud of you, son. Travis gave me a gift, a small wooden box he had made himself. Inside was a note. I'll never be able to repay the money, but I'm trying to be someone you'd be proud to call brother. Congratulations. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't healing. But it was something. A beginning of something different than what we'd had before. Maybe not the family of my childhood dreams, but a family that was honest, that respected boundaries, that understood consequences. Heather's family welcomed me with open arms. Her mother hugged me after the ceremony and whispered, Welcome to the family, sweetheart. And I realized that's what I had been looking for all along. Not biological connection, but genuine care. Not obligation, but choice. Now, as I look back on everything that happened, I understand what I needed to learn. For most of my life, I believed that love meant sacrifice. That being a good son, a good brother, a good person, meant putting everyone else first. I thought boundaries were selfish. I thought saying no was the same as not caring. But I learned something crucial. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's self-destruction dressed up as virtue. When you allow people to take advantage of your kindness, you're not helping them. You're enabling them. You're teaching them that manipulation works, that emotional blackmail gets results, that they don't have to face the consequences of their choices because you'll always be there to catch them. I also learned that family is supposed to be a source of support, not a source of exploitation. The idea that family takes care of family should go both ways. It shouldn't mean one person gives endlessly while others take endlessly. The hardest lesson? Sometimes protecting yourself means letting people you love face hardship. It means watching them struggle and not rescuing them. It feels cruel. It feels wrong. But it's the only way they learn to stand on their own. I don't regret cutting them off financially. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that the family I thought I had was never real. But I don't regret choosing myself. Because here's the truth. You teach people how to treat you. And I was teaching my family that I was an infinite resource with no needs of my own. That my success was their inheritance to claim. That my boundaries didn't matter. When I finally said no, when I finally fought back, I wasn't just protecting my assets. I was protecting my dignity, my self-respect, my future. And maybe, in some strange way, I was protecting them too. Because living off someone else's success isn't really living, it's existing in someone's shadow. By forcing them to stand on their own, I gave them the chance to discover their own strength. Travis found his. Gerald found a measure of peace. Linda found some self-awareness. Would they have found those things if I had just given them the money? If I had let them steal my house? If I had enabled them to continue down that path? I don't think so. So the lesson isn't just about protecting yourself from toxic people. It's about understanding that real love sometimes means tough love. That real family means mutual respect, not one-sided obligation. That forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation, and healing doesn't require pretending the wounds never existed. I'm not the person I was 2 years ago. That person was kind but naive, generous but blind, loving but codependent. Now, I'm still kind, still generous, still loving, but I'm also wise, boundaried, self-protective. And that's not selfish. That's survival. That's health. That's what it means to truly love yourself enough to demand that others treat you with the same care you show them. Today, I stand in my home, my truly mine home, with a woman I love who respects me, with a career I've built with integrity, with friendships I've nurtured carefully, with a future I'm excited about. My relationship with my biological family is complicated, distant, but honest. We may never be close again, but we're no longer at war. I think about that morning 2 years ago, when I forgot my folder and went back to get it. I think about standing outside that bedroom door, hearing words that shattered my world. And I realize that sometimes the worst moments of your life are also the most necessary. Sometimes you need to lose everything you thought you had to discover what you actually need. I needed honesty more than harmony. I needed respect more than relationship. I needed safety more than sentiment, and I was willing to fight for it. If you're going through something similar, if you're being taken advantage of by people who claim to love you, if you're being guilt-tripped into sacrificing yourself for others who would never do the same for you, I want you to hear this. You are not responsible for other people's poor choices. You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. You are allowed to protect your peace, your resources, your life. And if protecting yourself makes people angry, that tells you everything you need to know about why they were in your life in the first place. Sometimes the greatest act of love is letting go. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is save yourself. And sometimes justice doesn't look like revenge. It looks like boundaries, consequences, and the quiet dignity of refusing to be anyone's victim. I forgot my folder that morning and went back to get it. What I heard changed my life, but what I did about it defined it. And I would make the same choice again, every single time. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family? Have you experienced something similar? What would you have done in my situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who's struggling with the same decision. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps others who need to hear this message find it. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel for more real stories about life, family, and finding the courage to protect yourself. Share this story with anyone who might need to hear it. Someone out there is struggling with guilt over setting boundaries, and your share might be exactly what they need to see today. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope wherever you are in your own journey, you find the strength to choose yourself, the courage to protect your peace, and the wisdom to know that loving yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. Take care of yourselves. You're worth protecting. Always.